All right, guys. So let me kind of orient you guys to using Atom, so that we can use that to create our website. We have been using CodePen, and CodePen is really, really good for us to get our ideas across, but it's not good for like things like this. Me seeing, testing out like what it would look like if I'm focusing on a certain link or button for my navigation. That's really good. But for testing out different layouts, that type of stuff, super good. This is nice. Actually, designing our website, though, we need to actually use Atom or any other text-based editor, okay? So Atom, this is what it looks like. If it's not on your desktop, you guys are going to need to download it. If you guys are using a Chromebook, then you should not be following this tutorial. You should be following the one for a Chromebook, as you will have to use a different text-based editor to use this. Now, there's a couple things that we need to do. The first, before we get into Atom, is that we have to set up our folder structure. Okay, so on these desktop computers, you are going to want to create a folder. Now, you guys are not allowed to right-click, so the way around it is right here. When we hit this little drop-down caret, we can see the different buttons that we can select. I would go ahead and select all of those, okay? And then that's what we see here, where we can see the properties, we can create a new folder, we can rename, we can undo, we can redo, and we can delete, okay? So the first thing that we really need to do when we are building our website is that we have to have a folder where everything that we put in our website has to be in there, okay? If you do not do this, then when we get ready to upload our stuff and your links that you have for loading those images and all of the different stuff, if you guys are using fonts or Font Awesome, everything will break. And then you guys are going to have to go through and fix it. So the easiest way to avoid all of this is to make sure that everything you have is in a folder. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on this right here to click and create a new folder. And this one I'm just going to call it My Website. I'm not putting a space, okay? For web design, a lot of times spaces will mess up. So I will click this and click Enter. Now, if for whatever reason it just says new folder and I didn't get to type it, okay, as long as I have my selector on it where it's showing where it's selected, okay, so it's kind of highlighted in blue, I can come back up here to one of these buttons and I can click on the rename and then I can go ahead and type it, okay. And click Enter. Now, once I'm in here, so this is where everything is going to be. Now, notice it's in my Documents. My website folder is in my Documents folder. It should not be on your desktop because you may not be able to see it on these computers. If you guys were planning on working in multiple locations on your guys' document for building your website, then you are probably going to have to take the files or this entire folder, load that up to Google Drive, pull it down from Google Drive at your location where you want to edit, work on your document, load them back up to Google Drive and save over whatever was currently there, pull back down to here when you want to work in the classroom, okay? So you're just going to have to use Google Drive to move your files back and forth, or you guys could use a flash drive, it doesn't matter. So everything that we have has to be in here. So once we have that, we are good to go ahead and open up Atom. Now I'm going to go through walking through Atom and setting up the first couple pages, just playing around with stuff. Now, when we're looking at Atom, there should be a couple things that we see in our window. We should see this project. Yours will probably be empty. If you haven't opened up something, we see a welcome tab, a welcome guide, and a telemetry consent. All of these ones you don't really need unless you guys are following along in the videos for installing a package. Then you would need this, okay? So we can go ahead and click the X for these tabs, okay? So now everything's closed except for the Properties window. Now, when I want to create a new file, I'm always going to use the File tab, okay? I can go ahead and click File, New File. Now, when this opens, it's showing that it's untitled. I have line numbers for my code, and I see that it says plain text right here. So if I'm trying to type my code like this, I have to manually type the open and closing tags for everything, and it's tedious. Okay, so what you should do, very first thing you should do when you first open up a file that you guys are going to use for HTML is you're just going to go to File, and then we're going to go down to Save As. Okay, so when we click Save As, we need to navigate to that My Website folder. So let me find it. There it is. It's in my Documents, My Website folder. I'm going to double click. Now, for all of your pages, you have to have a certain naming scheme that you guys do. Everything needs to be in lowercase, because if you do uppercase, you guys are going to have issues. And the very first page has to be named index. Okay? Many browsers will not correctly work if your first page is not named index. When you guys go live and you load this up, it could break and not open up your first page correctly. Okay, the way around this is making sure that your first page is always named index.html. Okay, index is the name of the file. .html is the file extension. .html lets the computer and the browser know that that file that I'm opening is a hypertext markup language file. Okay, so when I save this with .html, this is what should show up in my tab if I correctly saved it. It should say index all lowercase .html, and on the bottom right should now show HTML instead of plain text. Now what I can do, and I want you guys to do this, is you type HTML, see how it's showing some code completion. If I go ahead and hit tab when it shows code completion, then it will help me write my code. And in this one, it gave me the skeleton code that I need. Okay, so if I was walking through this, line 1, this doctype.html, we've learned about this. This lets the browser know that we are using HTML5. Okay, and then what we have learned about using HTML is that it has open and closing tags, and everything is kind of like wrapping inside of each other. So my entire page starts and ends with the HTML tag, okay? And if I click on one of the pair, the other one should be underlined to let me know that I have it selected, okay? I have to have these. Everything about my page needs to be inside these HTML tags, okay? Now the next things that we see is we see a head and we see a body. Now a head is all of the stuff that is about our web page, but stuff that I don't need to visually see. So in this case, like if you guys were using Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, anything, any social media site you guys are using hashtags to identify topics or categories that you are saying your video or picture is, it's the same thing for websites. We would have keywords, titles, links to other files, all of that stuff that's used for building our website would be in our head. Okay, it's not visually seen, but it's important for our page. Now, anything that is visually seen, the part that is on our browser, if I'm looking at CodePen and I open up something, okay, this part that I see, this white part right here, this is part of my browser. This is what is visually seen. This is the body. Anything that is between these body tags is what I visually see on my page. Okay, so now at this point, let's go ahead and let's add a H1 heading. So I just type H1. I'm going to let code completion do the work. I should not be manually writing this because I want to make sure that I'm not going to have errors. So after I write it, I'm going to go ahead and click tab. Now it's finished for me. Now I can do my very first program and call it Hello World. That's the title that I'm going to put on here for my H1. It needs to be inside my body. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and save. So if I go right here where it says index.html, we see that blue dot. It lets me know that I did not save my document. Okay, so if I want to save, I'm going to go to the File tab and I'll scroll down. Now I could go ahead and click Save, but a good web designer, front-end web designer is somebody who is using keywords. They are using shortcuts. They are saving time. That's why we use an IDE instead of manually typing everything out, because it gets us to that creative coding process faster. Okay, so yes, we could go ahead and click File, Save, every time we want to save, or we can just start remembering the shortcuts, which is what I'm encouraging you guys to do. Control plus S. So that's what I am going to do. Control plus S. If I saved it correctly, that blue dot should go away. Okay? Now, let's go and see what our page looks like. So in order to do that, we have to navigate to that actual file. So I have to go to my documents, click on my website folder, and then I should see my file, my index. Now it's not showing the .html, but if I look over here, it's showing, whatever my default browser is, and that is an HTML document. I can, depending on if you guys have the rights, you guys could choose to see the full extensions on here. But usually it's going to show the icon of your default browser. Now if I want to open this on an actual browser, I need to double click on this. Okay? Now this is what shows up. What I visually see on my page, I see that H1, that hello world. Okay? Now, if I want to go back and forth using full screen, I can use another shortcut set of keys. If I hold Alt down and I tap Tab, it's going to open up all the windows that I have on my computer at the moment. Okay? So if I want to flip back and forth to a page, all I have to do is just stop what is highlighted around on the page that I want to go to. So if I want to go back to Adam, I get that selected and I release Alt and it opens up. Now if I want to snap back and forth from the last two pages, I just do a quick Alt Tab. I push Alt and just tap Tab real quick and release. It will snap me to that next page. Okay, so I can bounce back and forth between the two pages, make some changes, refresh my code, and go ahead and see it. Okay, so let's go ahead and make some changes on here. So here, we never filled out the title, and when we look, we see index.html. Now I want you guys to go ahead and try this out. You guys can do you guys first name, and then type first web page. There we go. All right, now if I go back and I refresh, well, wait, I don't see anything. Why? Because we have to save. If we don't save, we're not going to see the recent changes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S. That's my shortcut for save. Snap back to the page, and I want to refresh. Now I could click here to refresh, or the shortcuts for this would be F5 or Control R. Control R will refresh my page, and now it's showing Redbeard's first web page. This is the title. It will show on the tab of our page, but it's not part of our browser. Okay, so now we can snap back and forth and make changes. Now another way that we could do this, if we would like to see and have a little bit more instantaneous change, we can click on the color bar at the top. We can drag it down, and then it will kind of minimize a little bit. Now we can drag it to the right or left until we see the outline, release, and now we are doing splitting our screen. So now I have my code on my left, and I have my web page on my right. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's build a nested anchor tag, and I want basically something to say click here, but here I want to be a link to go to my next page. So since I'm using some text, that means I'm going to have at a minimum a paragraph tag. So I'm going to hit P and Tab, and then I'm going to type click, and that's not what I want to be my clickable item. I want click here, where here is my clickable item. So that is an anchor. So I'm going to hit A, Tab. Okay, now I can type here inside the opening and closing tags of my anchor. That would be my link. Now, since we've learned about using anchors, that we can use those to hyperlink to separate web pages and things like that by typing inside our hyperlink reference that actual page, like google.com or anything like that. Well, for our pages, when we're doing our own personal page, then we need to actually type that file that is found inside of our My Website folder. Now this one, we want to link to, say, a second page. Oh, but we don't have one. So let's go ahead and create a new one. So we're going to go to File, New File, and we now need to create another page. Before we do that, the very first thing, we need to save so it will recognize as HTML. So I'm going to go File, Save As. Okay, I'm going to navigate, and this is very important. I have to navigate to my website folder. If I don't do this, I can cause issues. I'm going to click in here so that I see my index. Now, the second page, third page, fourth page, every other page outside the first one, doesn't matter the name, but it cannot have spaces, and you should get used to not ever using capitalization. So, page 2.html. I have to finish it with that .html extension. I go ahead and click Save. Now I can put my skeleton code on, HTML, click Tab. Now I see these blue dots. Let's go ahead and save them. Control S. Select this tab, Control S. Okay, now I want to go from my index page, my home page, to this page2.html. I need to type it exactly as I see it, page2.html. Okay, once I do that, again, there's a blue dot. I need to save, bounce over here, Control R or F5 to refresh. Now I have this. Now if I click on the here, it should bounce me to the next page. But I don't see anything, so let's go ahead and make some changes on here. Let's put our title as second page, and our body, let's write an H1. And let's type second page. Okay, let's go ahead and Control S. Now I'm going to click back on here. I can go ahead and click here, there. See, there's the title, and I have my H1 that's inside of my body. Okay, but I don't have a way to get back, so I actually want to jump back to the index page from my second page. That's kind of like I'm building some very simple navigation. If we were being smart, and here's an before I jump on, if I hover over this, if you're ever in a situation where you made changes and you're like, I don't see it, Mr. Walters, hover over your page. See, it shows me the where it's located. It's located in my documents, my website, page2.html. If I'm looking here in my URL, that should match my documents, my website, page2.html. If those don't match, chances are you are working on a different file. Okay, but I want to make sure that I can bounce when I'm on the second page back to the first page. So here, this is what I'm going to do. Because I'm going to program smartly, I don't need to retype this every time. I can go to a previous one that I know it works. Control C to copy. Control C to copy. Instead of trying to right click and click copy, I hit Control C. That's my shortcut. I go to page 2, and I'm going to click Enter right underneath at the end of my H1 because it has to be inside the body to be visually seen. I'm going to paste. Control V to paste. Okay, Control C to copy, Control X to cut, Control V to paste. Okay, so now if I go ahead and click Control S to save and I refresh my page, here it is. When I click, nothing's happening. And if I look, I can see this flicker, but it's not going back to the index. Well, if I look, I have to modify my code. I am, with the link, going to page 2. Well, since I already have page 2 open, all it's doing is just reloading that page. So I need this link that I want to bounce back into to match my first page, which is index.html. So let's go ahead and make just that change. We're just modifying a little bit. Control S, I click on my browser, Control R to refresh or F5. Now I can click and I can see that I am bouncing back and forth from my index page, which says Hello World as my title, to my second page, which says second page right here. Okay, so that is basically how we can start setting up our pages. When I'm looking in my website, I see both of those files there. If any one of these files is not inside my website, it will break when I write it like this, okay? Because it's looking in that folder first. So if you have it outside of that folder, it's going to break because what this is called an absolute link. And if you do not absolutely put it where it's supposed to go, it will absolutely break, okay? So that is an orientation on using Atom with using our browser to be able to build our website. You guys will be using Atom if you're developing on a desktop. If you guys are developing on Chromebooks, you guys will use different software. You guys are going to have to follow the walkthroughs for that. Okay, that's it for this video. Good luck. Have fun.